If he had lived in another era, you'd be tempted to think of him as a myth. After all, who could be so perfect? Who could be one of the greatest players in hockey history, rewrite the record book for a sport that is religion in this country, while also inspiring people through countless acts of kindness by never losing touch with his community? Well, Jean Béliveau was that impressive. A towering man who cast a very large shadow on Montreal. I was lucky to spend some time today in that city to talk about a man who had time for everyone. If there's just one image that tells the Béliveau story, perhaps it is this one. The gesture of a gentleman giant encountering a little kid on a snowy Canadian street. The hockey hero, larger than life, pausing, connecting, forging a memory for a lifetime. Of course, Jean Béliveau was a star player. Fast, powerful, competitive. 10 Stanley Cups speak to his leadership and range of skills on the ice. Hockey prowess matched only, perhaps exceeded by, the grace, the humility he displayed off the ice. It didn't matter who you were. In Béliveau's world, everyone was treated with kindness and courtesy. For every fan letter opened, a handwritten note was returned, and every autograph was signed with precision and care. Even when his playing days were over, Béliveau simply always took the time. You may have arrived a fan, but you left a friend. That's how Béliveau made people feel. And so now, the very genuine outpouring, the elegant tribute by his team, his family, and his people. A measure of their admiration for him that for 2 full days, the pilgrimage never ceased.
He deserves all of this. What he has done for so many others, this is just a small token, but the feeling of the Bell Centre today, there's no words to describe.
Cheryl Nashon's affection for Béliveau started when she was just a young girl.
When the Canadians won a Stanley Cup at that time, or many Stanley Cups, and all the guys would be going down St. Catherine Street in the convertibles, I made sure that I was there. My parents brought me to see him. I waved, he waved at everyone.
Over the decades, there came an actual bond, and on her daughter's first birthday, Béliveau sent a gift, a doll, now clutched close to Nashon's heart, as she says, a final goodbye.
I don't think he ever put himself first. He truly was there for everyone. And when he'd meet anyone, he'd want to know about you. Or he even when we went up to visit with him, he wanted to know about us and our family. Never once talked about himself or his fame. What a man. What a man.
Robert Nicolas shows off his own treasures and shares the story of a Sunday morning ritual that went on for years.
You can see him at the grocery store, at the little market close to my house. Every Sunday morning he was there with his wife, having breakfast.
Then came the day Nicolas introduced his sons.
He said, "This is the guy you have to meet." And we went one Sunday morning, my 2 sons with their Canadian jersey, and we waited till he had his last bite and asked him if he can sign for us the jerseys, because I told him that I was a big fans of him. He said, no problem. He took the time, chat with the kids.
Those smiles, that pride written all over a young boy's face, says it all. That Sunday ritual is gone now, but the memories, that connection, never to be forgotten. And for that, Nicolas is grateful.
People respect him because he respects people.
Gratitude easily returned, even in grief.
The daughter, the 2 granddaughters, they were there for us, and that's a big mark of respect too.
Today's Habs never saw Béliveau play a game. Unlike some of us, they never saw him score a goal or hoist the cup. Doesn't seem to matter. The inspiration is there all the same. The team these days doesn't have a C, a captain, but it does have 4 A's, assistant captains. One of them, American-born Max Pacioretty.
When you were growing up, you probably never heard of Jean Béliveau.
No.
I mean, you weren't from this city, you weren't from this country. When did you first start to hear about Jean Béliveau?
When I was drafted here, I knew nothing about, like you said, the history of the Montreal Canadiens and the great legends that have played here. But my dad was a big hockey fan, so once I did get drafted here, he filled me in pretty quickly, and I almost had a history lesson right away. And that's obviously, the first name that comes up. But when people talk about Jean Béliveau, they don't really talk about numbers and stats. And he did have 10 Stanley Cups as a player, but that never is really mentioned. I think mostly people talk about him as the type of person he was and the type of impact that he had on players, teammates, the city, the fans. And I think to be that good of a player and to have people recognize you for being such a great person, I think that's something that we should all strive for in this room. And hopefully it can motivate us to be better people away from the rink.
You had the opportunity to meet him, I imagine, a number of times. What was that like? What was the takeaway from you from meeting Béliveau?
It was hard for me to even talk to him because of the presence that he had. Even being in the same building as him, you knew he was there, and you knew everything he did was with such class that it was hard for me to even find words to talk to him at times. But one thing that I always take away is he always gave people, the time of day and made everyone feel like they were important.
I want to show you something. Stephanie's going to pass here to me, but this is a magazine you grew up reading, well before you were born.
Mm-hmm.
This is January 23rd, '56. Jean Béliveau on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You know why this is interesting?
Why is that?
This is the first time a hockey player ever made the cover of Sports Illustrated.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's amazing. That's, wow. It's, he did so much for the sport, and, obviously I didn't know this, but, that's something very special.
When you look at the old black and white video and some of the early color video, watching him on the ice, I mean, as you said, everybody talks about his presence off the ice and what he meant. But when you watch him on the ice, what do you see?
We saw a lot of his highlights in a lot of the tribute videos, and all the guys are saying the same thing, like, your hands shouldn't have been that good with that type of stick and that type of equipment out there, and it looked like he was just so far advanced compared to the competition in terms of, when he was deking the goalie, he was waiting for the goalie to make the first move, and he looked so calm and relaxed, and he had those smooth hands to finish it off, and I never knew exactly, what made him so good, but I think watching those tribute videos, that's what impressed me the most, and I've heard a lot of the teammates say the same thing as well.
There was this moment yesterday at the wake when you went up to Madame Béliveau. Tell us about that.
Just wanted, I've spoken to her in the past, but obviously wanted to, let her know that, her husband was a perfect role model for everyone in this room for what we're trying to be as a team and as people, both as athletes and as human beings. And there's no better role model, to look up to for myself personally and for my teammates. And obviously she knows that. So many people have told her that, but I just felt obligated to tell her myself. And, she's a very strong woman and obviously had, some words to speak back, and she, it's hard to explain into words how good of a feeling it was to be able to communicate with her at that time, and it's something I'll never forget.
Béliveau may have slowed down in his later years, but remained prolific with a pen. It was important. The man who sometimes gave others a hard time for their scribbles was steadfast about the value of a legible autograph. Every neat, clean stroke a symbol of respect demonstrated and respect earned. Jean Béliveau, like the signature, unique, classy, indelible.